Deep Wealth Nation, welcome to another episode of the Deep Wealth Podcast. This is a special episode. It's a solo episode where I'm asking 7 questions that expose the hidden founder trap that's stealing your joy and profits. And so let me ask you something, Deep Wealth Nation. As you look to your journey, are you asking yourself, are you happy? Are you fulfilled? Or is it, I'm at the top of one mountain, can't wait to get to the other? I know I was like that very early on in my journey. So let's dive right in there. Let me ask the first question. And as always, be honest with yourself. But I think if you're being honest with yourself, and I know you are, you probably already know the answer. Here's the first question. Question number 1. Have you built a successful business that you no longer enjoy owning? And we've all been there. Now, I'm not talking about a moment or two where, I'm not so sure about this business. I'm talking about that feeling all the time. And no, this is not a failing business. It's not a struggling business. You have a successful business. Your revenues are great. Your team, not only are they great, it's getting bigger. The market respects you. And from the outside looking in, you have what so many founders want. But, and it's a big one, behind closed doors, it's a very different truth. You're tired of carrying the business. You're tired of being needed by the business. Day in, day out, you're wondering why something that was supposed to give you freedom is now taking more from you. This is one of the most dangerous moments in the founder journey, because it's not that the business is failing. In fact, it's the opposite. It's succeeding well enough that it's hiding the real problem. The numbers are not good, they're great. And they're so strong that they keep you going. The outside applause is loud enough to drown out what's actually happening inside the business, and most importantly, inside of you. So Deep Wealth Nation, let me be blunt. If your company is growing, but your enjoyment is doing the opposite, it's shrinking, this is not the price of success. It's a warning sign. Now, most founders miss it because they explain it away. Oh, Jeffrey, it's just a season. Or this quarter is intense. Or yeah, you know what? This hire will fix it. Or the next level of revenue, that's when we'll get this problem that I'm feeling right out of the way. Then I'll finally breathe. Then I'll finally enjoy it. But the season never ends. Sadly, Deep Wealth Nation, I've been on the other side of it, and I know exactly what it's like, because the pressure simply changes shape. The business grows, but your freedom doesn't. The team expands, but key decisions still come back to you. Revenue, yes, it's climbing. Profits are getting better, but the mental load doesn't go down. And somewhere along the way, the company, your baby, that once felt like possibilities starts to feel like obligation. And here, Deep Wealth Nation, is the deeper issue. What if burnout isn't the problem? What if burnout is the symptom of a business that's outgrown its operating system? Let me repeat that one more time. What if the burnout is the symptom of a business that's outgrown its operating system? And this is the Deep Wealth Insight. And Deep Wealth Nation, this is what I want you to know. When your business model, leadership model, and operating model require too much of you every single day, no matter how great the business may be, you are not building, pun intended, deep wealth. You're building a success trap. You're not building deep wealth if the business only works because you keep absorbing the pressure. That's not freedom. That is not leverage. And it's certainly not the most profitable version of your company. This is one of the biggest founder blind spots that I see. A founder thinks, Jeffrey, I'm exhausted because I care. Or I'm stretched because we're growing, and I'm overloaded because it's simply leadership. Well, no, it isn't. Sometimes what feels like leadership is actually founder dependency wearing a very expensive suit. And founder dependency, it's costly. It costs you emotionally, operationally, and financially. It also costs in enterprise value. And most dangerous of all, the founder gets rewarded well before the founder gets punished by it. And that's why it's so easy to miss. I know this all too well. When I was building Embanet, my e-learning company, from the outside looking in, everything looked incredible. Revenue, climbing, profits, catapulting. The momentum was real. We were creating a market disruption. By every KPI, every data point, every external measure, Embanet and myself, we were winning. But behind the curtain, the better the company performed, the more it depended on me. Every meaningful decision came back to my desk. Every escalation, well, yeah, of course, let's get Jeffrey involved. Every big win had my fingerprints all over it. And at first, I felt great. It felt validating. Only later did I realize, wow, it was dangerous. A business that cannot run at a high level without the founder is a house of cards waiting to implode. And that wake-up call became part of what I now call the Deep Wealth Operating System. This is what I created because the Deep Wealth Operating System is not about squeezing more out of you as a founder. It's about building a company that increases profit, enterprise value, and it gives you choice. I can keep this company forever or I can sell it tomorrow. Wow, talk about two incredible choices. Because if your growth requires more of you every year, that's not scale. That's captivity with better revenue. Deep Wealth Nation, this is so important. Let me repeat it one more time. If your business grows every year, but needs more of you every year, that is not scale. That's a more profitable form of captivity. And here's why it matters so much, because it's not just a personal issue. This is a profit issue. When the founder becomes the emotional shock absorber, strategic bottleneck, and operational backstop for the business, hidden costs begin to show up everywhere. Your decision quality, well, it slips. The wrong people stay too long. The right people, they see the writing on the wall and they leave far too early. Complexity piles up, opportunities get missed, and the team waits instead of leading. On paper, sure, the company's profitable, but underneath the surface, it's leaking money through dependence, drag, delay, and distraction. And this is the silent tax of founder-centered growth. And if you ever want the operation of selling, taking the chips off the table, raising capital, or simply staying back without the fear, your buyers and investors will see this too. They price in fragility. They discount businesses that rely way too much on the founder because the buyer or investor, they know that the difference between a company and a job wearing a company costume. As you've heard me say in this podcast before, buyers and investors, they want businesses that are proven and predictable, not potential, and they want a business that thrives without you. And even if you have no plans to sell the business, even if you have no plans for investors, you still want to have a business, right? Of course you do. And so when this symptom is there, it's a hidden skeleton in the closet. It has everything at stake, including your future and the business. And this is why this matters, regardless of whether you plan to sell in 2 years, 20 years, or never. The destination is not the issue. Your current operating system is. And this is exactly why I created the Deep Wealth 9-step roadmap, not as theory, not as motivational fluff. It's a battle-tested system that's forged through wins and losses, my own mistakes. And those mistakes, they are reverse engineered from what nearly cost me and then refined to help founders build businesses that create real freedom. Choice is not granted by success. Choice is designed into the system. And here's the great news. If this is your reality, you're not weak. You're getting a signal. The business is telling you that success has outgrown your current structure, your current operating system. It's telling you that complexity has outrun the design. And it's also telling you that what got you here is now putting a ceiling on what comes next. Once you see that, now we can do something powerful. Now we can stop treating exhaustion like a badge of honor. And now we can stop confusing personal heroics with business strength. And now we can start redesigning the company so it gives you the profits with the freedom and the choice at the same time. So what do you say, Deep Wealth Nation? Shall we go on? You want to hear what's next? And of course you do. So that said, let's do it. Question number 2, and this is one that most founders either never ask or don't ask enough. Here's the question for you. When did growth stop feeling like progress and start feeling like maintenance? Let me say it one more time. When did your growth stop feeling like progress and start feeling like maintenance? And this is not a question that you're probably asking, but you're probably feeling it. You feel it when the company's moving forward, but you're enjoying it less. And you feel it when the revenue grows, but so does the pressure. You feel it when more people, more customers, more systems, and more opportunities somehow create less breathing room, not more. And this is how a business becomes an obligation. It doesn't happen all at once. It's quiet. It's gradual. And then all at once you realize something's changed. What used to energize you now drains you. What used to feel like possibility now feels like responsibility without any end. What used to feel like freedom now comes with a constant mental tab that you're never going to get closed. And this is the trap. As the business grows, more things begin moving through you. Sometimes it's because there's no one else. Other times it's because there's people in place, but too much still circles back to you. The path is different. The result is the same. And yes, Deep Wealth Nation, even if you have a leadership team, I can't tell you how many times, even with the best leadership team, the founder is still way too central, too necessary, too involved in too many things that should not need your time, your energy, or your judgment as often as they do. And this is where the shift happens. You stop feeling like you're building the business and you start feeling like you're carrying it. And wow, the weight that comes with that. And those are two very different experiences. One creates energy, the other consumes it. And at first, it may feel like success. Yes, things move forward because you're moving them forward. Decisions happen because you're in the room. And yes, problems are getting solved because you're stepping in. Do you see where this is going? Your clients, yes, they trust you, but the people depend on you. The business responds to your presence. And for a while, you feel terrific. You feel valuable. You get that adrenaline rush. You feel important. And it can even feel like leadership. But this is what is actually happening underneath the surface. Every time the progress depends on your intervention, the business is learning to keep leaning on you. Every time key momentum requires your direct involvement, the company is becoming more expensive to own. Not just financially, but emotionally, mentally, and strategically. And I got to tell you, as I'm recording this, myself and the team were putting together our 90-day Deep Wealth Mastery Health program. And wow, this is where we start to see these things add up. From the emotional side of things, from the mental side of things, you better believe it affects your physical health, and that spills over into the business. Because now growth is not creating more freedom. Growth is creating more dependence. And that's where the joy starts to disappear. Not because you don't care. It's because everything now carries a hidden cost. A client issue is no longer just a client issue. It's another interruption, another judgment call, another thread that pulls you back into something you thought someone else or some system should have handled. And a new opportunity, yeah, forget it. It's no longer exciting. It's another layer of complexity, another moving part, another demand on attention that you simply don't have. And even progress begins to feel expensive. And this Deep Wealth Nation is why you find yourself thinking thoughts you never expected to have about a successful business. I can't switch it off. Or if I pull back, too much slows down. Or how about too many important things still end up with me? Or I should be happier than I am. And that last one, this is the one that really matters because most founders judge themselves before they even think it. You look at what you've built and you tell yourself, yeah, I should be grateful. And yes, you should be. But gratitude doesn't solve structural overload. Success doesn't eliminate strain. And a business can't objectively be impressive while becoming subjectively exhausting for you to own, because both can be true at the same time. And this is the exact point where most founders jump to the wrong conclusion, because you assume that the problem is your energy or your motivation or your mindset. You tell yourself, oh, I just need a break, or hey, maybe I'm burnt out, or maybe I need to push through this session, maybe. But often, if you're honest with yourself, the deeper truth is much more practical. The business has become an obligation because too much of its performance still depends on you, your availability, your speed, your judgment, your pattern recognition, your relationships, your ability to absorb pressure and keep things moving, and the list goes on and on and on. And for a while, it looks like strength. And in fairness, yes, it is strength. But when the business keeps growing around your strength instead of beyond it, your strength now becomes the bottleneck. And what is now your strength, that becomes your weakness. And this is why the deep wealth operating system matters so much. Because at Deep Wealth, we don't just ask what the business earns. We ask what the business requires from you to earn it. Because if profit comes packaged with constant pressure, constant rescue, and constant dependence on you, then the company is more expensive than it looks. The company, your company, it's expensive in time, energy, attention, and even decision fatigue. Expensive in missed opportunities because you're way too deep in the company to see clearly above it. And this is where obligation becomes dangerous. When you carry too much for far too long, you don't just lose the joy. You begin tolerating things that you would have fixed earlier. You delay hard decisions. You accept complexity that should have been removed, and you become more reactive, less sharp, less patient, less creative. And little by little, the business begins reflecting your fatigue more than your talent. And that's the sequence that most founders miss. You lose energy. Your standards soften. Complexity grows. Progress slows. And profits get suppressed. And this is how a business becomes a burden and then quietly becomes less valuable. So if you're listening right now and thinking, Jeffrey, this is exactly it. I don't hate the business. I hate what the business now demands from me. Well, this is an important moment because now you're seeing the real issue. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. And the great news is you can change it, not by sacrificing more, not by pushing harder, but by redesigning what the business is asking from you in the first place. So with all that said, Deep Wealth Nation, what do you say? Should we jump to the next question and what you can begin to do about it? Of course we should. So what do you say? Let's do it. The third founder question, if your business is bigger than ever, why do you have less freedom than ever? Yes, I know it's a brutal question because growth was supposed to solve that. More revenue and more profits was supposed to create breathing room. A bigger team was supposed to take things off your plate. A more mature business was supposed to make life easier, not harder. And yet for many founders, the exact opposite happens. The company gets bigger. You get busier. The opportunity expands, but your freedom shrinks. So what happened? Well, here's what happened. You grew the business, but you did not redesign the way the business runs. And that, Deep Wealth Nation, that is the hidden problem. Because growth by itself does not create freedom. Let me say that one more time. Growth by itself does not create freedom. Growth only magnifies whatever operating system is already there. If the business is clear, disciplined, and scalable, growth creates leverage. If the business is founder-centered, reactive, and dependent, growth creates lag. This is why some founders grow and gain choice, but others grow and lose it. Same revenue trend, very different outcome. And this is one of the biggest misconceptions for founders. Founders assume scale naturally creates freedom. And I hate to be the one to break it to you, it does not. Scale creates more of whatever is already true. If decisions are unclear at a smaller size, they become slower at a larger size. I've been there. I've done that. It's not great. If accountability is weak at a smaller size, it becomes way more expensive at a larger size. If too much depends on you at a smaller size, well, growth only increases the number of ways that your business pulls you back in. So when a founder says, Jeffrey, I thought growth would make this easier, my answer, it's a simple one, not an easy one, but a simple one. Growth does not fix dependence. Growth punishes it. And this is where the Deep Wealth operating system comes into play. And it's one of the reasons why so many successful businesses become harder to own as they become more successful. It's ironic, isn't it, that today's success contains the seeds of tomorrow's failure. So let me make this practical. If every major issue still needs your judgment, then more customers create more decisions. If key relationships still depend on you, then more growth creates more emotional load. And if priorities are still running through you, then a bigger business just creates a bigger funnel back to your desk. And this is why so many founders feel confused by their own success. The numbers say one thing, their lived experience says another. On paper, they're winning. In practice, they're becoming more trapped. And it shows up in all different areas. Just ask your loved ones, your significant other, your family members. They'll tell you the real story of what's going on. Now, this is not because growth is bad. is because growth revealed a design problem that was already there. And now the bill is coming due. I've lived this myself. At Embanet, from the outside looking in, the momentum was real. The revenue was climbing. Opportunities kept showing up. But the better the business performed, the more it depended on me. Jeffrey was Embanet and Embanet was Jeffrey. Every meaningful decision found its way back to my desk. Every escalation required my involvement, and every big win, I was all over it. The irony is that revenue can rise and at the same time your freedom falls, and it shouldn't be like that. But sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. And if you didn't catch that early, you'll misread success. You'll think the answer is more growth, more effort, more hires, more motion, more money. But when the operating system underneath the company is flawed, more growth gives those flaws more places to hide. And again, I found this the hard way. I did the heavy lifting. This is from the trenches. And this is why the Deep Wealth operating system, this is why it was born. It was built differently. The Deep Wealth operating system doesn't worship growth for its own sake. It looks at the quality of growth. Is the business becoming more profitable? Is it becoming more valuable? Is it becoming less dependent on you? And is it giving you more choice? Because if growth does not increase choice, it's not complete growth. This is where many founders leave serious money on the table. Not because they're not working hard enough. It's because they confuse volume with value. They assume a bigger business automatically is a better business. And unfortunately, don't shoot the messenger. The answer is not necessarily. A bigger business with more complexity, more dependence, and more founder drag can be less profitable, less valuable, and far less enjoyable to own than a smaller business with real leverage. And this is one of the hard lessons from the trenches. And it's exactly why future buyers or investors don't pay top dollar for effort. Again, they'll pay for predictability, for systems, for leadership depth. They pay for a business that thrives without the founder sitting in the middle of everything. Buyers want businesses that are proven and predictable, not potential. So even if you never plan to sell, it doesn't matter. Why? Because the same things that increase buyer confidence also increase owner freedom. The same things that reduce deal risk also reduce founder risk. And the same things that increase enterprise value also increase the quality of the business you own today. You know, in business, we talk about the exit. Sadly, no one talks about the final exit. What's the final exit? This is the one that we all have. We don't know when, but it's all heading our way. No one, sadly, lives forever. Or maybe that's a good thing, but that's another episode for another time. The stress, it impacts your physiology, and that can lead to the final exit when you're no longer here. So you don't want that. So whether, again, you plan to keep the business forever or you want to sell it tomorrow, when you have the right operating system, the Deep Wealth operating system is never just about the exit. It's about building a company that works for you before you ever decide whether you want to keep it or sell it. And the Deep Wealth operating system optimizes for profit, control, and choice at the same time. So if growth hasn't created freedom for you, this is not a personal failure. It's a strategic signal. That's all it is. And the signal is telling you that your growth has outpaced design. And hey, that's great news. Your business is growing. It's now time to look back so you can look forward. And it's time to update your operating system because the signal is telling you that your revenue scaled faster than your operating system. And the signal is telling you that the business expanded, but the architecture underneath it didn't mature fast enough. And once you see that, now you can stop chasing the wrong solution because the answer is not simply more growth. The answer is growth with leverage, growth with structure, and growth with independence from you. And that growth, that's what increases the profits, enterprise value, and as important, arguably even most important, freedom. And you're doing this all at the same time. So if growth gives you more revenue, but less choice, your business is expanding, but your freedom is contracting. And this is what brings us to the next part of the conversation. If growth did not create freedom, then what did it create? And for many founders, it created a hidden tax that they never saw coming. So Deep Wealth Nation, are you curious about what's next? Yeah, so am I. So what do you say? Shall we do it? Let's do it. Founder question 4. What if your exhaustion is not just wearing you down, but quietly costing you far more profit than you realize? Let me ask you one more time. What if your exhaustion is not just wearing you down, but it's robbing you like a thief in the night, far more profit than you realize? Because most founders never ask that question. Yes, you feel the exhaustion. Yes, you know the pressure is real. You know that your patience is shorter, and you know that your head is fuller, but you rarely stop and ask the harder question. What's this costing me financially? Because if you do not measure the cost of founder exhaustion, you will almost always underestimate it. You'll think it's personal or temporary, or yeah, it's just for the season. Sadly, and again, don't shoot the messenger. No, it's not. Exhaustion is expensive, incredibly expensive, and the costs rarely show up where you expect it to. You will not see your exhaustion showing up as one big number screaming off of your profit and loss statement. Wouldn't that be nice as a warning sign if you did? What's actually happening is it's showing up as drift, or delay, or tolerance, or missed timing, or lower standards. Perhaps it's conversations that you should have had sooner, or people decisions that you should have made earlier, opportunities that you should have acted on faster. A lot of shoulds in there, and this is how exhaustion taxes profits. It's quiet and relentless. And here is what most founders miss. When you're exhausted, you don't just have less energy, you have less clarity, less discernment, less emotional range. You have less willingness to deal with the uncomfortable. And once that starts happening, your business begins to pay the price. You keep the wrong clients for far too long, and you're keeping the wrong team members way too long as well. You say yes to revenue that looks good, but drains the business. And deep down, you know it. You're too exhausted to deal with it. You postpone fixing the process that everyone knows is broken. You tolerate the extra meetings, the extra friction, the extra layers and noise. And because none of it looks catastrophic on its own, it all gets normalized. And this is how profits leak. Not in one dramatic moment, it's 100 or thousands of small moments where your fatigue lowers the quality of your decisions. And that Deep Wealth Nation, is the hidden profit cost of founder exhaustion. Let me make this even more practical. Exhaustion turns small issues into recurring expenses. It turns indecision into payroll drag. It turns weak accountability into margin erosion. And it turns your own reduced bandwidth into delayed action. And delayed action is always expensive. Not making a decision is just as much or even more dangerous than often making a decision. The marketplace waits for no one, because when you're running out of fumes, you don't choose the best answer. You choose the fastest relief. And the fastest relief is usually not the highest value decision. It's just the decision that gets you through the day, that may protect your energy in the moment, but it usually costs you profits over time. I learned this, sadly, the hard way at Embanet. I still remember this one bad hire that cost me nearly 6 figures in 6 months. But that wasn't the real cost. The real cost, in addition to my time, it was my health, my team's morale, our momentum. I was a bottleneck, running on caffeine and cortisol. It was Groundhog Day all over again, day in, day out. Worst of all, I didn't know how to escape. And here was the irony. Revenue was catapulting, but the profits were shrinking. And that was a eureka moment. I had to ask myself a painful question. Are we scaling, or are we bleeding slower? Wow, that was a brutal question with a not so great realization. Because as founders, we are taught to celebrate growth. But growth without clarity becomes a very expensive illusion. Let me say that one more time. Growth without clarity becomes a very expensive illusion. More contracts, more clients, more people, more noise, more pandemonium. And if you're exhausted inside of that, you stop managing for profit and start surviving for relief. This is not the same thing. And this is why founder exhaustion is never just a health issue and is not a lifestyle issue. It's an enterprise issue. It affects the quality of your leadership. It affects the speed and precision of your decisions. It affects what you notice, but as importantly, what you missed. It affects whether you're leading proactively or, more likely, reacting constantly. Now, inside the default operating system, this matters enormously because the business is always reflecting the founder's condition more than the founder realizes. If you're mentally overloaded, the company becomes more reactive. It makes sense, right? And if you're emotionally depleted, your standards soften. And the team, they see what's going on or what's not going on. And again, the chain is only as strong as its weakest link. And guess what happens? If you're carrying too much, complexity stays in place far longer than it should, and complexity is expensive in every which way you can imagine. And Default Nation, as I'm sharing this with you, I'm actually thinking of a founder who went through Default Mastery. And for privacy reasons, let's call this founder Kevin. Kevin graduated. A short while later, he came back to me and said, Jeffrey, I got to tell you, I went through Default Mastery because I'm looking to have an exit in the near term, but I never imagined the immediate effect that Default Mastery had on my business. My stress levels, our operational expenses are now significantly down, and I'm able to focus on new growth with ease. And he went on to say that everything that he learned was worth diamonds on top of all the other platinum nuggets. I love hearing that. This is the kind of stuff that gets me out of bed every day. And he said, Jeffrey, I just wanted to thank you so much for what you've done. My stress is down, my health is up, my family, they didn't recognize me there for a little while because the stress was getting to me. And so Default Nation, I want you to catch what's really happening here. Lower stress, lower OPEX, growth with ease. This is not luck, and it's certainly not random. This is what happens when you stop treating founder strain, founder exhaustion as normal, and start redesigning the business so it stops consuming you in all the wrong ways. And this is exactly why Default Mastery Growth and Default Mastery Exit both matter. If you want to keep the business forever, reducing founder exhaustion increases profits today because you'll make better decisions, you move faster on the right things, and you remove that expensive drag. But if you want to sell one day, reducing founder exhaustion also makes the company more valuable because buyers pay for a business that's not dependent on a depleted founder holding everything together. Buyers want businesses that are proven and predictable, not potential. What happened last year or 5 years ago or a few decades ago, yeah, sure, that's great, but they want to have what's happening tomorrow and beyond. That's not maybe, that's not hypothetical, it's not potential, it's actually happening. So let me give you that pattern one more time. Exhaustion lowers your decision quality, and lower decision quality creates tolerance, the wrong kind of tolerance that creates drag. And that drag suppresses profits. And because all that happens slowly, you're like that frog in boiling water. You often blame the market or the team or the economy or the timing or maybe even yourself. But the deeper issue, it's much simpler. You cannot consistently build a high profit company from a low capacity state. And again, I got to tell you, behind the scenes, as myself and the team were building out our 90-day Default Mastery health system, we keep on coming back to that. Your mental state, your emotional state, your physical state, whether it's great or not great, either way, it's showing up in your business. And so we want to show up vibrant, full of energy and clarity, and exhaustion does the exact opposite of that. And that's why the default operating system is not about pushing harder or working more. It's about removing the hidden sources of that exhaustion, that drag that's forcing you to operate far below your best. Because once you do that, something powerful happens. You stop spending your energy on preventable problems. You stop rescuing what should have been systematized. You stop mistaking exhaustion for commitment. And when that shift happens, profits don't just rise because you worked harder. They rise because the business stops leaking value through you. The profits were always there, but you just never saw them leaking. So founder exhaustion is not just a personal cost. It's a real profit leak hiding in plain sight. Let me say that one more time. Founder exhaustion is not just a personal cost. It's a very real profit leak hiding in plain sight. So if you've been telling yourself, yeah, I need a break, well, maybe. But maybe what you really need is a business that stops extracting so much from you just to perform at its current level. And that brings us to the next part of this very important conversation, because once exhaustion becomes normal, complexity is never far behind. So you want to know what's next. You want to know the next myth that we're going to dispel so that you can begin to unleash your health, your profits, your happiness. And of course, you're saying yes. So you ready? Do you want to do it? Amazing. Let's do it. Founder question number 5. How much of what is exhausting you right now is not growth, but complexity that should never have stayed in the business this long? Let me ask that again. How much of your exhaustion right now, it's not coming from your growth, and instead your exhaustion is coming from your complexity that never should have stayed in the business for this long? It's not a comfortable question. I get it, because complexity has a way of disguising itself as progress. I've been there. You're there. We're all there. We tell ourselves as founders, well, we're bigger now. We have more clients, more people, more systems, more moving parts. Of course, it feels harder. Yes, that can be true, but it's not always true. And sometimes it's not growth that's making the business harder. Sometimes it's unmanaged complexity that's quietly taking over. And when that happens, your happiness, your joy is the first thing to go. Not because you're weak, not because you lost your edge, because complexity, it's a thief. In the middle of the night, it's stealing your clarity, your speed, your energy, that space where you need to think, lead, and enjoy what you built, and it's doing it during the day in plain sight. Here's what complexity really looks like inside a business. Too many decisions needing too many people, too many handoffs, too many exceptions, too many meetings to solve problems that shouldn't exist, too many workarounds, too many things living in people's heads instead of in the business itself. And the danger is this. You adapt to it. It becomes a new normal. You're calling it scale. You're calling it the price of success. It isn't. Never forget that it isn't. Complexity is often an accumulation without design. You're like that proverbial ship without a rudder. You're just going wherever the tides are taking you. And this is why inside the default operating system, one of the most important questions is not how do I grow faster? It's what is this business depending on that it shouldn't be? Let me ask you one more time. What is your business depending on that it shouldn't be? Because that question and the answer to that one question changes everything. It forces you to see what's been quietly piling up in plain sight. Let me say it plainly. Complexity, it's expensive. It slows down decisions. It creates drag. It hides accountability, and it keeps value trapped in your head or in a few key people. And it's one of the fastest ways to turn a successful business into one that feels harder to own every single year. And forget every single year, every quarter, every month, every week, every day, you get the point. And this is why you can be winning on paper and losing your joy, your happiness, your fulfillment in real life. The business is growing, yes, sure, but the business is also becoming harder to move, harder to trust, harder to step away from. And when that happens, you stop leading from above the company and you start surviving inside it. I want you to go back to the time when you started your business and it was the weekend and you couldn't wait for Monday to come around because now you're back at it. You missed it. You want to be in there. But now it's the weekend and you are dreading Monday. Oh my goodness. It's just another day away. And then the exhaustion begins. I can't take it anymore, or I'm so bored, or I don't want to do this, or I can't deal with the pressure. Do you see how it changes? And again, I learned that the hard way. Early on at Embanet, I thought excellence and excellence alone would carry the business. If we were smart, hardworking, ethical, delivered, and got results, I figured everything else would sort itself out. But I got to tell you, it didn't. And what changed for me, and this later became a core pillar in the default operating system, I realized that the real game is not growth, it's leverage. Leverage of thinking, leverage of positioning, leverage of capabilities that don't require more of you every time your revenue increases. And that is when growth stops becoming personal effort and starts becoming systematic. And for me, that was a shift. Without that shift, complexity compounds. With that shift, complexity gets converted into assets. What used to live in your head, well, now it gets documented. What used to depend on memory gets systematized. And what used to require your judgment every single time gets clarified in advance. As I love to say, delegate, automate, or eliminate. And when that happens, the business starts pulling you forward instead of you constantly pushing it forward. Decisions, well, hey, they're easier. Opportunities become clearer. And that constant sense of urgency, yes, it begins to fade. Imagine that. So if your business has become less joyful to own, Don't assume the answer is more motivation. And don't assume that the answer is simply to work harder or even to rest more. Ask the better question. Where has complexity replaced clarity? Where has motion replaced leverage? And where has growth added pressure instead of freedom? Because once you identify that, now you can simplify with intention. You remove the drag, you turn overwhelm into structure, and that's when something powerful happens. The business starts to feel cleaner. Not because it's smaller, but because it's better designed. And as I'm talking to you about this Deep Wealth Nation, in the 9-step roadmap, Step 2 X factors, this is foundational. This is why it matters so much inside the Deep Wealth operating system. Step 2 X factors is not just about differentiation. It's about moving the value out of your head and into the business itself. This is why documentation is actually an X factor. Can you believe that? Documentation being an X factor? Well, it is. And I got to tell you, when we had our systems and our processes documented, we would win businesses that way. We'd show up to our prospective client. Hey, just want to let you know, here's our written standard operating procedures. Here's the KPIs that we go by. It's all here. Take a look for yourself. And they were impressed because it was impressive. And best of all, it made the business resilient. It wasn't dependent on any one person. And when you leverage Step 2 X factors, they turn tribal knowledge into institutional advantage. Without Step 2 X factors, growth becomes complex. But with Step 2 X factors, growth increases freedom. Complexity is what happens when your growth outruns design. And when complexity takes over, your joy, your happiness, and fulfillment are the first things to go. And so that takes us to the next section. If complexity is a thief, then how do you get back your energy, clarity, and control? So what do you say, Deep Wealth Nation? Should we jump into the next question? So what do you say, Deep Wealth Nation? Are you curious? Just a little curious? Of course you are. So here we go. Here is founder question number 6. What if the business doesn't need more from you right now? What if it needs less of you in the wrong places? Let me say that one more time. What if the business does not need more from you right now? It needs less of you in the wrong places. And as founders, this is a tough question because we're used to solving, we're used to stepping in, we're used to carrying what others can't yet carry. And for a long time, that may have been exactly what the business needed from you. But there comes a point where more effort from you is no longer the solution, it becomes the cost. And that is the exact turning point. Because if you want your energy back, if you want your clarity, if you want your simplicity back, the answer is not to become superhuman. And if you hear that from anyone, run as fast as you can in the opposite direction. And this is the exact moment where the Deep Wealth operating system changes the game. The Deep Wealth operating system is built for one reason and one reason only. Too many founders win financially while losing personally, strategically, and physically along the way. The Deep Wealth operating system exists so you can grow your profits without growing pressure, build a business that works without you being the glue, and create choice instead of captivity. So let's make this practical. How do you reclaim your energy, clarity, and simplicity? Well, the short answer is you do it by removing yourself from the roles you should no longer be playing. So in other words, you're going to fire yourself, not your highest value roles, but the wrong roles, the rescuer, the bottleneck, the translator between people who should already be aligned. You know exactly what I'm talking about, Deep Wealth Nation. If you're still the keeper of tribal knowledge, that is an issue. The person every issue somehow waits for before moving forward. The more you stay trapped in those roles, the more the business drains you. And the faster that you remove yourself from those roles, the more your capacity comes back. This is not selfish. This is being smart. This is smart design. And this is exactly why the Deep Wealth operating system is so powerful. It doesn't begin by asking, how do I work harder? It asks, where is the drag? Or where's the dependence or the hidden cost? Where's the pressure coming from that shouldn't still exist? Because once you find those points, now you can intervene with intention. Now you can redesign. Now you can get your energy back, not by escaping the business, but by cleaning up the parts of the business that keep consuming you. And when that happens, something remarkable begins to occur. You think more clearly, you decide more quickly, you stop reacting to noise, and you start seeing opportunities again. The business feels less like something that's always calling your name and more like something that's finally beginning to stand up on its own. And I've lived this myself. One of the most meaningful transitions in my journey began when I stopped asking for better tactics and I started demanding a better way to operate. Ultimately, this is the shift that led to my 9-figure exit, but more importantly, to a life that I didn't need a vacation or even an exit to escape from. And that matters because too many founders think the reward comes later. And after the next revenue milestone, or after the next hire, or the next deal, or the exit, the list goes on and on and on. And I'm here to tell you, it isn't. It's a pipe dream. It's your own Kool-Aid that you're drinking. Please stop. Because the Deep Wealth Operating System is about building a business and a life that now gives you options. So in step 9, where you extract your deep wealth, it's not about money first. It's about quiet power, the kind you feel when you know you're not trapped, the choice to keep building without resentment, or the choice to step back without fear, or even the choice to sell without regret. Because choice is not granted by success. Let me say that one more time. Choice is not granted by success. Choice is designed into the system. As I'm talking about this, I'm thinking of another founder who graduated from Deep Wealth Mastery. And again, for privacy, let's call the founder Susan. Susan graduated and she said, "Hey, Jeffrey, I got to tell you, I have saved countless dollars and hours." And she went on to say, "What I learned from the Deep Wealth Mastery program has helped me make small incremental changes, nothing big, but it was immediate value for my company." And that's exactly the point, because what Susan was sharing with me, she reclaimed her energy and her clarity, but it wasn't from one big overhaul. And that was one of the, let's call it myths, that Susan came into Deep Wealth Mastery with. In her mind, she thought, okay, it's got to be some big strategy or one big bold move that's going to do it. And she was pleasantly surprised when she went through the 9-step roadmap, mastered the Deep Wealth Operating System, how the small things became the big things. Often, it comes from identifying the few right changes that remove a surprising amount of pressure. Perhaps it's a cleaner decision path, or better hiring, or clearer accountability. How about incredible documentation and less founder dependence? Small changes, but huge leverage, immediate value. This is how simplicity returns. And as I always say, don't confuse simplicity with simple. Not by wishing for less complexity, but by designing intentionally for less complexity. And this is where so many founders finally feel relief, not because the business got smaller, because the business got cleaner. Cleaner priorities or roles or systems, expectations, and decision-making. Let me go back to step 2 X factors, because this is where they matter so much. Because in step 2 X factors, we go from the value being in your head or in team members' heads, and now we put it into an institutional advantage. Everything is documented. Perhaps it's an online frequently asked questions for everyone, whatever it's going to be. But without step 2 X factors, your growth becomes complex. With step 2 X factors, growth increases freedom, not just for you, but for your team and all of your stakeholders. It's also why the Deep Wealth Operating System keeps bringing us back to one core outcome: choice. Not just more revenue or scale or a bigger team, but choice. Choice in and of itself. Because if your business gives you more revenue, but not more choice, well, something in the design is broken. So if you're listening right now and you're thinking, okay, yeah, Jeffrey, I get it. I don't need more advice. I need relief. Okay, good. I'm glad you're saying that. You came to the right place, and I'm glad you're still with me, because that honesty matters. Stay with me for just a moment. That relief, what you want is not random. It comes from redesign and only redesign. It comes from no longer tolerating drag, and it comes from no longer confusing your constant involvement with business strength. It comes from deciding that the company must stop taking so much from you just to keep moving. And this is how you reclaim your energy, your clarity, and simplicity, not by stepping away from responsibility, but by redesigning responsibility so it no longer lands on you. The goal is not to become a stronger founder so you can carry more. The goal is to build a stronger business so it needs less caring from you. Let me say that one more time. Your goal, your mission is not to become a stronger founder so you can carry more. Your mission is to build a stronger business so it needs less of you. And that brings us to the final section, the final question. Because once you begin reclaiming your energy, clarity, and simplicity, a bigger question shows up. Do you want to know what that question is? Do you want to know what's going to get us from here to there? And of course you do. So with that said, founder question number 7. If your business keeps growing, but it keeps needing more of you every year, is that really success, or is that just a better paid trap? And this is a question I want to leave you with. Not whether revenue will be higher next year, not whether your team will be bigger, not whether the market will reward you. The real question is this: are you building a business that gives you more life or keeps taking more life from you? Let me say that one more time, Deep Wealth Nation. Are you building a business that gives you more life, or your business keeps taking more life from you? I want you to think about that, because this is what the entire conversation has been about. Not burnout by itself, not complexity by itself, and not even profit by themselves. This has been about whether the business that you built to create freedom is actually giving you freedom. And if it's not, then something deeper needs to change. And here is the only in deep wealth moment. Most founders think the reward comes at the end. The next revenue milestone, the next hire, the next deal, the next exit. But deep wealth does not begin when a buyer shows up. Deep wealth does not begin the moment your business stops owning you. This is why the deep wealth operating system matters so much. It's not an exit system. It's not a growth at all costs system. It's a founder freedom system. It's designed so you can increase profits, enterprise value, and choice all at the same time. Because again, let's go back to step 9, extracting your deep wealth. It's not about money first. It's about quiet power. The kind of power that comes from knowing you're not trapped. The choice to keep building without resentment. The choice to step back without fear, or to sell with no regrets. Choice is not granted by success. Choice is built in and designed into the system. And that, Deep Wealth Nation, that is why this matters. Whether you're fit for Deep Wealth Mastery growth or Deep Wealth Mastery exit, the destination is different, but the operating system is the same. Growth without pressure, value without fragility, and success without captivity. And let me tell you something that changed everything for me. And as I'm talking about this, let me share this one story that changed everything, and I mean everything for me. One of the most powerful moments of my own journey, it wasn't the size of the exit deal. It was realizing that by the time the deal was happening, I didn't need the 9-figure exit to rescue me. There was a point when the liquidity event, as you know, it went off the rails. And I remember saying to my partners, Steve and Waleska, okay, if it doesn't happen, so what? We have an incredible business. We're going to keep going and we'll shape the business to suit our needs, not the other way around. And this is what made it deep wealth, not just wealth, pun intended. And this, Deep Wealth Nation, this is the outcome that I want for you. A business that's strong enough to keep, but also valuable enough to sell all at the same time. And a business that is clean enough to stop draining you. A business that gives you back your energy, your time, and your choices. And this is what it means to build a business that you want to own again. And as you're thinking about this, let's go back for just a moment before we wrap up to step 1, big picture, and why it matters so much. In step 1, big picture, it's actually forcing us to answer the question that we tend to avoid as founders. What kind of life is this business supposed to create for me? And what could happen that could put me out of business tomorrow? Because if you don't know the answer to those questions, the business will answer it for you. And it's usually not a great answer, not the kind of answer that you want. When you get step 1, big picture right, you stop building by default and you start building by design. And as you're thinking about that, Deep Wealth Nation, let me share one other comment from a Deep Wealth graduate, William, who said, hey, Jeffrey, a company that's attractive to sell is also a great one to own. And Deep Wealth Mastery, it gives me the best of all worlds. And I could not have said that any better. And so that, Deep Wealth Nation, that is it. That's the whole game. A great business to own, a great business to grow, a great business to sell if and when you choose, not because you're concerned, because you're ready. And as I always say, having one choice is no choice at all. Two choices is a dilemma. It's only when you have three or more choices that you have real options. So Deep Wealth Nation, as we wrap this up, I have a personal favor. Let me ask you a question. Did this episode give words to something that you've been feeling, but you didn't know quite how to put into words, or maybe you knew, but you didn't want to talk about? I'm hoping you said yes. I'm hoping that you found some value. And if you did, please subscribe to the Deep Wealth Podcast right now. Please do it right now. Don't do it later. Something's going to come up. Do it right now. And don't assume that you'll remember. Take the 1 second and subscribe right now on your favorite podcast platform. Why? Because every episode, it's built to help you grow your profits, your enterprise value, and build a company that gives you more freedom, not more pressure. This is not random content. This is founder to founder insight from the trenches. This is the Deep Wealth operating system in action. And if this episode hit home, don't keep it to yourself. Share this episode with another founder who needs a wake-up call, because the right insight at the right moment can change the future of a business. Text it, email it, send it with one line. You need to hear this, because one conversation can change how a founder sees a business. And once the founder sees it differently, that founder can build it differently. And if you want help with building a business that you want to own again, that's right. If you want help building a business that you want to own again, email success@deepwealth.com. You know, success, SUCCESS, at deepwealth, DEEPWEALTH.com. Success@deepwealth.com. And in the subject line, put Deep Wealth. Again, success@deepwealth.com, and in the subject line, put Deep Wealth. We'll explore whether Deep Wealth Mastery Growth or Deep Wealth Mastery Exit is the right fit for you. And let me leave you with this. The goal is not to build a business that looks successful from the outside. Your mission, your goal is to build a business that gives you profit, freedom, and choice from the inside out. The best business to sell is usually the same business that becomes the best one to own. So Deep Wealth Nation, thank you so much for joining me. And remember, success without fulfillment is complete failure. So build that business that you want to own again. Subscribe to the Deep Wealth Podcast. And while you're at it, give another founder the gift that keeps on giving. Share this episode, pay it forward, and together, let's strengthen, let's improve the social fabric of society, one founder at a time. And all that said, it's official. This is a wrap. And as I love to say here at Deep Wealth, may you continue to thrive and prosper while you remain healthy and safe. Thank you so much, and God bless.